Hello. Before we start today's episode, if you would like a condensed version of what I'm talking about in this podcast, go ahead and subscribe to the Perfectionist Guide. You can read the entire thing in 3 minutes or less. To access this, go to CourtneyLoveGavin.com/newsletter. Are you a bit of a perfectionist, type A, hyper performer? Then you know that having the audacity to see an ideal and bring it into reality while breaking generational habits of hustle can be tough, but it doesn't have to be. If you are ready to burn bright instead of burning out, to lead without losing yourself, and to enjoy the life you have worked so hard to create, then keep listening. I'm your host, America's leader on rewiring perfectionism, CLG, and this is Perfectionism Rewired, the podcast. Welcome to Perfectionism Rewired. Today we are talking about meeting yourself where you're at, not where you think you should be. I counted the other day and I have helped hundreds of high achievers, type A driven perfectionists forever stop fighting against themselves. And this foundational piece that we're going to cover in today's episode tends to be the most, if I give you a map of here's how you get from New York to Seattle, it is utterly unhelpful if you're in Atlanta, Georgia. If you value your time at all, then you gotta know where you are. The only way to do that is to meet yourself where you're at instead of where you think you should be. This is an MVP episode. We're going to explore how meeting yourself where you're at is the oven that is going to heat up and bake in the changes that you want to make happen. I'm also going to reveal the biggest lies that cause perfectionists to feel disgustingly allergic to meeting yourself where you're at, how to overcome the obstacles that pop up. And I'm going to walk you through what my client Porsha experienced when she met herself where she was at. And I'm going to share with you what are all of the hidden benefits you get to receive by meeting yourself where you are at. And you want to listen till the end because I have a very special announcement for you. Meeting yourself where you're at instead of where you think you should be. I bet that you are very self-aware, maybe even too aware. You've probably done counseling, EMDR, hypnotherapy, EFT, but what all of those modalities have failed to tell you is that without self-acceptance, there is a limit to how far self-awareness can proceed. And that is the limit most perfectionists hit when they join Perfectionism Optimized, my one-on-one coaching. You know that this is you if you're ever like, I know what to do, but I'm not doing it. Or if you're painfully aware, but the traction and the momentum that you're looking for just hasn't seemed to pick up. You're aware of a pattern that you have. And what happens is that you begin to sort of tense up against it. A lot of times it's an autopilot type response. You feel powerless to control it. And in that moment, self-acceptance seems impossible. But the solution is not to deny it or to resist your resistance. The key, when that comes up, you want to stay with the resistance at a conscious level, an objective level. And when you do that, the resistance will begin to melt like a hot knife cutting through butter. When we're like, I'm not where I think I should be, we become off center because when we say we're not where we should be, we are internally fighting ourselves. We keep ourselves in a prison of conflict and tension. You cut yourself off at the source of your power. And as we've covered in the past couple of episodes, when these unwanted feelings that you have inside aren't discharged, you're not metabolizing the stress, we unintentionally block the integrative process that maintains our internal equilibrium and well-being as a living organism and a species. And what that can result in is
Sickness, for me, I had all of these immune system issues. Like your person actually begins to shut down. That is why, in order to rewire your perfectionism, it all starts with meeting yourself where you're at, not where you think you should be. Self-acceptance or meeting yourself where you're at. There are a lot of lies, perfectionists, that your mind tends to feed you. The number one lie is that you equate self-acceptance with approval. Self-acceptance does not equal that you approve of it. Self-acceptance is acknowledgement. It's keeping it 100. It would be like if you were a teacher and you thought that if you graded someone's essay, it meant that you approved of it. No. You're just acknowledging the work that they did or didn't do. And it's the same thing when it comes to yourself and meeting yourself where you're at. The second lie, why perfectionists hit a ceiling of self-awareness, is because there's this lie that if you meet yourself where you're at, then you are preventing any future change or improvement. That's a lie. Meeting yourself where you're at doesn't mean that you dilute or diminish your desire to change, grow, and evolve. Meeting yourself where you're at and not where you think you should be, it means peace. It means wholeness and integrity. You are able to snatch your power back in order to make the changes that you want to make. You are retiring from being at war with yourself. You are deciding that you are no longer going to deny the reality of what is true for you right now at this moment of existence. When you refuse to meet yourself where you're at, and instead when you tell yourself that you should be here, that you should be past this by now, that you shouldn't be dealing with this anymore, that you should be smarter, that you should have a different job, that you should have gotten your business off the ground, should. You are ostriching yourself. Ostrich, like the animal, the bird that sticks its head in the sand and thinks that it's hiding. You are ostriching yourself because you're not fully aware of the nature of your choices and your actions. And when you can't tell yourself the truth, or you're telling yourself a half truth and not the whole truth, you can't change. Like you are hitting that ceiling, and it doesn't matter how self-aware you get. It doesn't matter how many years you spend in therapy or how many books you read or how many podcasts you listen to, because you're living in a fantasy. You're unwilling to accept the truth of where you're at right now. Meeting yourself where you're at requires you to approach your experience with an attitude that makes approval or disapproval or good or bad irrelevant. Like there's no judgment here. It's just the willingness to be aware. Meeting yourself where you're at is the precondition of change. It is heating up the oven to cook and to bake the growth that you want in life. The way that I look at it is that if you're only willing to maybe peek at some of the facts of your life, or you're only willing to be with them for a little bit because then it gets uncomfortable, like not getting on the scale and not looking in the mirror doesn't change the shape that your body is in. It makes it worse. And if you're only doing it in little bits, it's like you have an easy bake oven. So you're wondering why things aren't totally where you want them to be and you're not really seeing the progress that you want to get. It's because you're using an easy bake oven instead of using the full range oven that you have in front of you, instead of like really using the fire you have inside of you. When you meet yourself where you're at, instead of where you think you should be, your self-confidence and your self-respect is going to skyrocket. If there are aspects of yourself that you don't like, you're going to be more motivated to make the changes once you have accepted the facts as they are now. All humans, animals, we're not motivated to change things when we avoid the reality of them. This is why when we start coaching one-on-one, you do the fact map framework, the 360 of looking at all the facets of your life, being truth booth about where you're at. You're playing with a full deck and you can turn your oven on. The third lie that stops perfectionists thriving and flourishing, and why you're not being a powerhouse right now, is because you believe that if you meet yourself where you're at, that's where you're going to be forever. But it's like who you are right now is not a permanent forever face tattoo. We are all continually evolving creations. We all have a piñata of possibilities. And we change moment to moment through our choices, our thoughts, our responses, and our actions. You always contain the possibility to change. You are never a prisoner of yesterday's choices. You're not a prisoner of last hour's choices. And if you feel that you are a prisoner of yesterday's choices, talk to the warden of the prison. That's you, because you're in a prison of your own making. Meeting yourself where you are ultimately is self-commitment of the highest caliber. This is deeper than self-esteem. You can't have any self-esteem if you're not meeting yourself where you're at. It is such a core act of self-affirmation. I'm really into animals. I love studying. In addition to studying the humans, I love to study the animals. And it is a primitive reflection that is the birthright of every conscious living organism, self-acceptance. But the tricky thing is that only humans have the power to invalidate it. We are the only species that has the power to invalidate the truth of who we are. This approach to meeting yourself where you're at, aka self-acceptance, is precisely what an effective perfectionism coach strives to awaken in you. I'm telling you, even if you have Guinness World Record lowest self-esteem on the planet, this will help you. Because if you work with a perfectionism coach that has expertise, they inspire you and strengthen you to face whatever you're most dreading to look at inside. You're able to do it without collapsing into self-hatred, without rejecting the value of who you are, or spinning out into depression and the depths of despair. When high achievers start inside Perfectionism Optimized, they might be experiencing low levels of self-esteem. But what they find is that when they accept it, along with all of their self-doubts and maybe feelings of guilt, by accepting, it's like a heavy weight has been lifted. Now, when I illuminate this concept of self-acceptance to clients inside of Perfectionism Optimized, here are some of the responses that I usually get and what you might be thinking right now. But CLG, I don't like the way that I am. I want to be different. Or I don't like to be this concerned about what people think of me. I hate that part of myself. I wish I could get rid of it. Or I'm ashamed with the fact that I'm still struggling to say no to my parents. I loathe myself for being this way. And you want me to approve of it? Or I see people I admire, people who are strong and confident and assertive. That's the way I want to be. Why should I accept how much I suck right now? So these lies show up. If you accept who you are right now, you must approve of everything, which is not true. Acceptance doesn't equal approval. And there's also this belief that if you accept who you are, it will mean that you are apathetic or allergic to improvement. No, if you accept who you are, it accelerates you. I want you to think about that. So self-acceptance, meeting yourself where you're at, it is not defeat or approval. Self-acceptance, meeting yourself where you're at, is acknowledgement and an acceleration on your path to growth. The fact that you are able to criticize your own behavior, what that is telling me is that you have a desire to change and that you are worthy and deserving of such growth, that there is a part of you that believes that. And if you are struggling with, do I deserve to invest in my happiness when partnering with a professional to help me with this, you got to decide that you are worth more than a designer bag or a laptop or a remodel on your house or a vacation. Because meeting yourself where you're at, if you don't do that, and if you don't get help with it, there's no further evolution that's possible for you. This is why, by the way, I am 100% transparent about the cost involved in working with me and remove all pressure from the process. Because most of the time when it comes to working with a coach or self-development, they turn you into a victim. There's no psychological safety. And they make you scared of what your life will be if you don't work with them. Or they put this false urgency, this many spots left. And homie, don't play that. I will never play that with you. I want you to start with this rich understanding of self-acceptance. Because when you make the choice that you deserve it and you are worthy of it, it becomes a powerful level for change, including unprecedented growth in your self-esteem. This is what this looks like. Okay, my client Porsha came to me. She had done counseling, she had done EMDR, but she was full of self-loathing and was judging the shit out of herself because of her inability to say no when someone asked for her help. Even when it cost her her own relationships with her family, like it came at her detriment. And so I asked Porsha if she was willing to accept and acknowledge this part of her. And she said, I hate it. And then after some initial reluctance, Porsha said, I accept the fact that I have been someone who chooses to say yes to everyone but themselves. And when I asked Porsha how accepting that, how she felt about it, she said, pathetic. Then she went back to spinning and said, I refuse to accept the fact that I've been that type of person. And so I asked her, I was like, Porsha, then how are you going to change? And I guided her through several neurosculpting exercises that facilitate the acceptance where she's at instead of where she thinks she should be. And immediately when that happened, she gave up the sense of fighting herself. She began relaxing into the feeling that at this time in my life, this is just who I've been. Porsha said that it's so strange, but I feel calmer. I've stopped shouting at myself. It's just part of who I am right now. She said, I don't like it, but it's a fact and I acknowledge it. She said, not just with words, but, really accept it as true. She said, nothing has changed, but I feel as if I have more respect for myself. And then Porsha revealed the diamonds in the mud, which is as she begins to accept the reality of how she's been living, she said, it's so much easier to stop doing the things that I think I should stop doing. She said, maybe that's why I've been resisting accepting it. She said, as soon as you stop fighting and accept, change begins to happen. What happens is that you become relaxed because you are no longer hiding from yourself and you are no longer at war with who you are. And when you do this, it clears the road for your rewiring. And as you go forward, you notice that you are now in a friendly relationship with facts. And because of this, you no longer need to think about how you're going to say something. You feel comfortable receiving compliments. You can open gifts in front of other people. You're able to acknowledge your mistakes because your self-esteem is no longer tied to perfection. You have this attitude of curiosity. You're open to new experiences and new ideas. When you get anxiety, it is no longer overwhelming. You are no longer rigid. You are flexible in responding to challenges because you're no longer catastrophizing worst case scenarios. You're assertive and you are quicker to advocate for yourself. And you have this quality of dignity under stress where you are able to feel grounded and centered. I want you to imagine what a difference this would make in your day to day, how much energy this would free up for you. Think about the example that you would be setting for your children and your family by being this person. Think about the traction that you would get. You would be living with integrity in the highest possibilities of yourself. And in order to do this, you don't need to do more, be better, or try harder. Like you got enough on your plate as it is. All you need is the self-acceptance piece. So much easier. This is what I do for and with my clients every day. So if you know that not being where you think you should be is holding you back, getting in Perfectionism Optimized is a non-negotiable. Go to CourtneyLoveGavin.com/optimized to make it happen today. For the month of December, any person that signs up for Perfectionism Optimized, my 16-week one-on-one coaching experience, you are going to receive my big book of quality questions. It contains a powerful tool for when you know what to do, but you don't do it. It solves that for you.